Across this country, beginning in Mississippi, Alabama, years ago, of course, I'm on the front line of the Alabama-Mississippi struggle for civil rights. That was a long time ago. I want to talk about right now. Right now, change is putting people first. And the Green Party is committed to putting people first as we begin to talk about a Green New Deal. But that Green New Deal in urban centers has to look like the Marshall Plan that America took into Europe in 1945 after the war. We must restore and reconstruct urban centers. Today I want to focus on one issue out of many. I want to focus on education. America's greatest national treasure is right here at Albany in her universities. Here in Albany, Saratoga County, here in Albany and Troy, here in Schenectady, is America's greatest national treasure, and that is her youth. America's youth have been shortchanged. America's youth need a fully paid, comprehensive college education. One, is a human right. Education is a human right. Two, if we want to talk about national security, then America's greatest national security is educating her youth. There's no greater risk than an illiterate population to the security of a nation. So what I'm saying to Albany and to the state of New York, that it is time that we invest in America's national treasure, that we democratize education for all college students, that every college student in the United States be guaranteed at a public institution 4 years of free education, no loans, no leaving college with 30, 40,000 or more dollars in debt. It is time we democratize education. It is time we protect America's national security by democratizing our education and lifting up our college students, and not just those in New York, but those around the country. And I'm going to tell you right now, for sure, as I worked with Medgar Evers and Martin King and all of that batch back in the 60s, coming into the early 70s, for those who survived that long, I am willing to go to every molehill, anthill, every toilet, back alley, whatever there is in Washington, including the Senate chambers, to fight on behalf of America's youth. I am willing, as willing now as I was then, to give my life to make sure that there is a democratic education for every child in this country. I don't care where they come from. Every child that's in America, every youth must be given a full 4 years education. We'll talk about how far we go beyond that. How do we do it? We need a tax on war profiteers, a 15% surtax on war profiteers who are profiting from the murder and slaughter of young kids all over this world, particularly Iraq, particularly Afghanistan. It brings tears to think about Haiti, it brings tears to think about Palestine. We need to educate our youth. America needs to protect its national security by greening our young and bringing them into a world where they can prepare us for the end of our journey as they take over the 21st century. Thank you, Albany. I love you, Albany. My 16 and a half years here, I love you, I always love you. And so I love upstate. Thank you. Good to be home. That I will take to the legislature a bill to begin to tax those war industries that are engaged with our Defense Department. One, they don't have to worry about bidding because there is no bidding. Two, they don't get taxed. And three, they don't pay out any taxes. That has to end. There should be a 15% surtax placed on any industry, I don't care how small or how large, that's working with the largest economic entity in the United States, which is our Defense Department. So I'm suggesting we start with the war profiteering industry. Secondly, Obama gave over $1 trillion to Wall Street investment companies in 2008 to 2009. That $1 trillion, we don't know where they invested it. They did not need money. They had no liquidity crisis. They laughed all the way to the bank. They came because they needed a credit rating. And they left with trillions of dollars of our money, which they invested somewhere. We need to know where they invested. It's total transparency. And that is the taxpayers' money, and therefore we have a right to 50% share on any profit they made from those investments. We are now owners in Wall Street as American people, and that money will be returned to the national treasury. Of course, New York will have her fair share of that. We will demand that.
And you think that's enough?
That'll be more than enough not only to fund New York,
How long?
for the defense contracts. One more, please, yes. We also need to ask for a 50 to 70% tax of the money that's being put into the Defense Department be returned to the National Treasury. It will fund us going forward, not for once, 50 to 70% of that $708 billion that we suggest for 2011, $708 billion. And the expenditures, and we don't know what that is, or how much, because there's been no transparency on what's called expenditures. Most Americans don't know that billions of dollars are spent every year in something called expenditures in the national budget. But that money would be returned to our budget going forward every year. There's no reason why America should be suffering with education or any other area. It's how we spend our money. And we need to start spending our money at home. We can close those military bases and bring our troops home and begin to rebuild and reconstruct the United States. My primary concern right now is New York. And when we bring that money back into the budget, and we're talking now about billions upon billions of dollars annually, that will fund anything we needed going forward. We don't have problems with how we spend our money. That should not be a minimum anything for being educated in the United States. I think that once we begin to focus on the young people, and on people generally who want an education, anybody who wants an education should be able to get a free education. We educated Europe after World War II, and it has one of the highest literacy rates in the world to this hour. Why didn't we educate our own? We must begin to focus on Americans. We live here. We make these dollars, and it should be spent on us. So no minimum GPAs. Young people should be encouraged to go to school. And I think once we begin in creative ways to work with our young, we will not only move to the highest literacy rates in the world, now we're at the bottom of that list of developed countries, but we will also move our nation forward as a powerful nation without some of the imperialism that we display around the world. Our youth are creative, they are ingenious, and they're trustworthy. We should trust them and lift them up. Let me take this last one, because he asked a fair shake. He asked a question that really needs an answer. In 1980, Ronald Reagan became president of the United States, the most popular president we've had until Clinton and Obama. The argument then, based on all the stats in the country, was that Johnny cannot read. 20 years later, Johnny cannot read. It is time that we look for an education policy in the United States that is designed to, one, not block any youth in the country from getting in the education system. Two, that encourages the best of the crop of teachers, those that you're worried about, those GPAs, not to look for businesses, but be in the business of educating our young. And it's time that the whole community, and I mean the whole community, is engaged in the education process. Because I remember a time in Mississippi and Alabama, and a time certainly before I was born, when we had $1 for every black child, $100 for every white, and yet we had black kids that achieved at the highest levels around this country. Du Bois was one of those kids out of Massachusetts, achieving at the highest level. We could go through one after the other, because what? The whole community was involved in the education process. Let's teach Johnny to read by loving Johnny and rebuilding the whole community. I say green America, and green it now.